Okay.
The job at Chase involved traveling to all the Latin American countries, and in those days I was qualified for first-class travel, so it was a very comfortable job, well paid, and I got a special achievement bonus which came with a nice check. Also, our service was working in the Middle East, running training programs, so twice I went to Bahrain to teach a week-long program for the Arab bankers of the Gulf area, which was an interesting experience in itself. But in '82, with the Latin American debt crisis, the Latin American countries had borrowed too much and couldn't pay it back. It was partially the fault of the American bankers who lent them more money than was prudent. So they had to conserve the little foreign exchange they had, so they prohibited paying for services, they cut imports, they devalued their currencies. So if I was charging $30,000 a year, it suddenly became $50,000 a year because of the devaluation of the local currency. So Chase announced it was closing down the Latin American group of FX service and offered me a job as a credit analyst.
And what year was this about?
84.
Okay.
So I wanted to stay in a position where I could express my international interests. So I declined. Chase gave me a 6-month severance, and I went over to the New York Institute of Finance, where I became the director of financial training programs. But I wanted more of a university-type position, and then Pace University in New York offered me a position as associate professor of finance, which I accepted, and I was there for about 10 years, many as assistant chairman of the finance department. Pace was mostly a good experience because they let me teach the classes I wanted to teach, and the classes were very well received at the university, and I wrote 3 books myself and contributed to 2 other books, wrote a lot of articles, did some traveling on behalf of the university, such as to Malta, and but towards the end of my 10 years there, the administration was increasingly hostile to the faculty, and I was president of the university's chapter of the American Association of University Professors, so I would get all the complaints and express them to the administration, which didn't want to hear complaints. And anyway, it was an unattractive atmosphere, so I left and became a consultant, basically, doing training programs in different countries around the world. So I did programs in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Indonesia, Malta. I also was visiting professor at the University of Montreal, at Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington, and did short programs in other places, such as I mentioned, Hong Kong, etc. I had clients in New York where I generally worked on foreign exchange related problems, but also anything that came up. I worked a lot with Russia, and basically did some training programs in Russia, and basically worked on whatever project the company got. One of the more interesting ones was I was assigned to purchase 10 armored cars for Russian bank presidents. Apparently 15 bank presidents had been assassinated, and so the bank presidents wanted armored cars. So I first had to learn the armored car business, the run on flat tires, the bomb-proof floors, the tear gas sprays at the four corners of the car. And dealt with companies in Tennessee and Florida. It's mostly Central Americans. They start with a standard car, but usually a better one. It could be a Cadillac or it might be a high-end Chevrolet Impala. And when the car was finished, it looked exactly what it looked like when they started, but it was a lot heavier. The glass was bulletproof glass. They call that transparent armor. And there were panels of either layered steel in the doors or dense ceramics made the cars bulletproof. There were 4 levels of cars, depending on how well you wanted to be protected against the Glock 9mm is the lowest level. The highest level was to be protected against the Kalashnikov, AK-47. So it was a variety of things. And recently I largely retired. I have a couple of clients left, one in Paris. It was teaching at a business school in Paris, and I help her prepare her lectures and her articles using Skype, so there's no expense in all the hour-long phone calls.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
And you stay connected with SAIS, I know. You go to events when you can.
Yeah. The reason I've had some medical issues that I've had to deal with, which have slowed me down.
Yep.
But
well, you've obviously done a tremendous amount and have had an amazing career. And I think, just in thinking about that, what advice might you have for a current student today?
well, the world today is a lot different than it was in the mid-'60s when I went to SAIS, especially in terms of technology. So I would advise students to be very computer literate. I would also advise that students take, and SAIS has started offering it more business sort of classes, because most graduates go into international business rather than diplomacy or teaching. I would advise students to travel a lot, which is very educational, and try to do serious travel. Try to get jobs in foreign countries to experience the atmosphere. While I was at SAIS, I was president of the ISEC committee. I don't know if you know that. ISEC is an acronym in French for Association Internationale des Étudiants en Sciences Commerciales et sciences. Well, it's international students in economics and finance. It's in about 80 countries, and I had been president of the Haverford Bryn Mawr chapter, Bryn Mawr being Haverford's sister school, and I had a job in Madrid, Spain. It's a summer job for 2 months, a junior executive traineeship. And while I was at SAIS, I had a traineeship in Dublin, Ireland, and we basically raised jobs in the United States and traded them for jobs in other countries. And I had very good positions with the largest department store chain in Spain as its economic department, and I was working for the National Shipping Company of Ireland, learning how to run an international shipping company, working in half dozen of the different departments there, and enjoying Ireland, which is a very enjoyable country. So it might even be good to take a couple of years off between college and SAIS to get some direct international experience. I would say to develop a good understanding of economics, which underlays, much of which transpires in the international sphere. And maybe while they're at SAIS, try to, if they're not going on for a doctorate, then to try to develop relationships and contacts while they're at Hopkins, which would be useful in finding a job after they leave Hopkins.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and thanks so much for all you've done for the world and for SAIS, and we just appreciate your time and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.